calls for calm and patience as Ghana awaits official election results. A former top LRA commander asks the International Criminal Court to acquit him on war crimes. And the end of an era as Ban Ki-moon reflects on his time as UN Secretary General. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Giduyuwat. This is Africa 54. Vincent Makori is off today. We begin this evening with the latest from Ghana, where official election results are expected in coming hours. The opposition New Patriotic Party is already claiming an early victory, but its candidate Nana Akufo-Addo is calling for calm and patience to allow the Electoral Commission to deliver official results. The ruling National Democratic Congress is dismissing the opposition's victory claims as premature. President John Mahama is also calling for calm. He says he will respect the outcome of this election and make Ghana proud. VOA correspondent Peter Clotte is in Accra, and earlier he spoke to Electoral Commission spokesperson Eric Kofi Zakpasu and asked him when official results will be announced.
We asked at 9:30 this morning. We have received about 210 constituency results, and we are waiting for about 65 more. These are constituencies with large voter numbers, and it's likely to have a large impact on the results. So, and there are issues relating to some of the results at some of the constituency centers. So the Commission is taking stock of all the pink sheets from those areas. And as the chairperson addressed, there's a need to reconcile some of these figures. So hopefully by the close of the day, early hours of tomorrow, we should be having the results. Talking about the contestant, the political parties, they are so comfortable with the process. But as you know, the anxiety is only about a delay in the declaration of the results.
There has been a deadly standoff between security forces and protesters in the English-speaking region of Cameroon. Police shot and killed 4 anti-government protesters in what was meant to be a peaceful demonstration in the country's northwestern region. The protesters were marching on a meeting of the ruling Cameroon's People's Democratic Movement in Bamenda. Police initially tried to scatter the demonstrators using tear gas. Media reports say officers later opened fire on the crowd. Protesters first broke out in Bamenda in early November when lawyers and teachers demanded better working conditions. It was a rare act of defiance against President Paul Biya, who has ruled Cameroon for more than 3 decades. The International Criminal Court is investigating why South Africa failed to arrest Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir when it had the chance. South African President Jacob Zuma let al-Bashir depart after an African Union summit in that country earlier this year. Zuma's decision unleashed a storm of protests in June and led indirectly to South Africa's decision to withdraw from the ICC. The court has charged Mr. al-Bashir with genocide in connection with the conflict in South Sudan. ICC arrest warrants are binding on all member states. The War Crimes Court has asked South Africa to send representatives to a hearing in April next year to determine whether it had breached its obligation to arrest al-Bashir. The public hearing is likely to further strain the already frayed relations between the ICC and African leaders, many of whom accuse the mainly European-backed court of being biased against Africans. A former top commander from Uganda's Lord's Resistance Army went on trial in The Hague this week. Dominic Ongwen faces 70 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder, rape, torture, and sexual enslavement. The charges relate to an attack on a camp for internally displaced people in Uganda in 2004. Ongwen is the first member of the LRA to appear before the International Criminal Court. He is considered to have been a right-hand man to LRA leader Joseph Kony, who is still on the run. But Ongwen, who is a former child soldier, is asking the court to acquit him, saying he too is a victim. He surrendered to the ICC in January 2015. His trial has been described as one of the most momentous in the history of the War Crimes Court. Joining me in the studio to tell us more is Ladio Kai. He's written extensively on the LRA. He is the author of the book, When Walking Defeats You, 1 Man's Journey as Joseph Kony's Bodyguard. Ladio, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with this trial. This is the first rebel to be tried from LRA in The Hague. What really is the significance of this case, and how do you expect, what are we looking at in this trial really?
Well, this is the first case not only of a former LRA fighter, but also the first case where a former child soldier is in front of the International Criminal Court. It's a very important case that has raised many questions, perhaps the most important being here is can we continue to judge someone for actions that he committed when those actions were committed against him in the first place? In other words, he was a child soldier. He is considered to be a victim as well as a perpetrator.
Again, Sakai Ongwen has pleaded not guilty, and he says he too is a victim. So when you look at that, does he really have a strong case here?
I think he does. I think everyone would agree, including the prosecution and the victims, that Mr. Ongwen was abducted. He was a child. The age is a bit unclear still, between 10 and 14. But his argument has been that he was abducted, he should have been protected in the first place, and he was forced to commit some of those crimes. Whether or not that's the case, that was definitely the case, that remains for the court to decide and come to an agreement.
Again, it's alleged that Ongwen fell out of favor with Joseph Kony, the LRA leader. Is this true, and if so, why?
I think it is true. I think that, particularly based on the interviews I conducted for my book as well, there are many former LRA members have said how Mr. Ongwen fell out of favor many times with Joseph Kony, and one of the former bodyguards and close fighters to Kony came out last year. He told me also that before Mr. Ongwen came out of Kony's camp, he was beaten on Kony's orders for insubordination.
You know, Uganda government had already said it was going to kind of throw its full weight to ICC to support this case. But again now, the government wants to withdraw from the ICC. What do you make of that? Why the change of heart?
Well, I think the Ugandan government has alluded to the fact that that the ICC sometimes might not be necessarily, might have a bias. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not sure if Uganda will definitely withdraw from the ICC. But I think there is this perception that when it came to fighters, low-level fighters, it was okay for the ICC to intervene. But then when the ICC started to go after leaders in African nations, particularly in Kenya, I think that maybe became a little bit too problematic for President Museveni.
Sakai, if you remember, well, in 2012 there was even this kind of campaign that went viral about trying to get Joseph Kony. But to date, we do not know where Joseph Kony is. Do you think that Ongwen is likely to reveal his whereabouts? Would he even know?
No, Ongwen would not know where Kony is right now. Ongwen came out at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. It's been a long time. Kony's already moved. We have a general idea where Kony is, but it's a large area in the border between South Sudan, Sudan, and Central African Republic.
Laido, thank you very much for your insight into this
Thank you for having
story.
me.
Laido Sakai is author of the book, When Walking Defeats You, 1 Man's Journey as Joseph Kony's Bodyguard. Moving on, panelists gathered by the United States Institute of Peace and the Holocaust Memorial Museum came together Thursday to discuss how to prevent mass atrocities in South Sudan. This follows warnings by UN observers that the conflict in the country could slip into genocide. Panelists Cameron Hudson and the director of the Simon Scott Center for the Prevention of Genocide at the Holocaust Museum told observers several scenarios could trigger a genocide in the country. He pointed to the vacuum being created in Washington, with President Barack Obama leaving office next month, as well as the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon leaving office. He also referred to Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's decision not to seek a second term as head of the African Union Commission. Hudson worries that the transition of power at the UN, the US and the AU and the absence of foreign diplomats during the holiday season could lead to an increase of violence. At the end of December, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will leave office after a decade at the helm of the world's body. VOA's UN correspondent Margaret Bashir sat down with the UN chief to reflect on his time as the world's top diplomat.
He has traveled the world trying to prevent and end conflicts, promote development, and lessen the effects of climate change. Along the way, he has met scores of world leaders, refugees, and victims of natural disasters. Ban says it will be up to historians to judge his legacy, but he points to the ambitious 17-point Sustainable Development Agenda to end poverty as one of his most important accomplishments.
I'm confident that by 2030, the older people will be in a much better way in living in a healthier, more prosperous and more peaceful world. And this is my hope.
Ban also says he is proud of the Paris Climate Accord, which went into effect last month.
It required a lot of political mobilization, and it required forging a stronger partnership and raising the awareness of the government leaders and business leaders and civil societies.
Ban also has been praised for the UN's efforts to end the death penalty, improve women's rights, and fight violence and discrimination against the LGBT community. But his list of unfinished business runs long.
When it comes to continuing crisis in Syria and elsewhere, South Sudan, Yemen, Central African Republic, and elsewhere, we have to show unity of purpose and the solidarity for the people. Often, I have been shocked by the lack of empathy of some world leaders.
Ban, a native of South Korea, also is preoccupied with the mounting tension on the Korean peninsula because of North Korea's repeated nuclear and ballistic missile tests. He tried to go to North Korea last year, but Pyongyang canceled the visit at the last minute.
It was a unilateral cancellations. I really tried to do whatever I can to contribute to, first of all, reduction of tensions on the Korean peninsula, and also promote the reconciliation between the two parts of Korea.
There has been much speculation about Ban's future. At 72, he is still full of energy and looks unlikely to change his workaholic ways. He has long been tipped to be a top contender in South Korea's 2017 presidential race. But recently, the country has been engulfed in a political crisis that could see the current president impeached if she doesn't resign, which could move the election forward. Ban says South Korea has resilient and mature democratic institutions, and he is confident it will come through the current crisis. As for a presidential run, he will only say that he is keeping his options open.
When I become a civilian, private citizen, then I will have to discuss this matter with the leaders of Korean society, my friends, my family.
Until then, he will keep everyone guessing. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
Now, markets continue to hit an all-time high as the Trump rally rages on. With more on U.S. stocks is Jill Malandrino, Africa 54 business correspondent in New York.
Good afternoon from the NASDAQ market site. U.S. stocks opened slightly higher this morning. We can see that this has been quite a week on all of the major averages. This Trump rally market madness continues as the Dow, S&P 500, Russell 2000, and the transports all traded to new all-time highs for a second day in a row on Thursday. This time, the NASDAQ joined the party as well, trading at a new lifetime high. The mood can be summed up in one word, and that's euphoria, as market enthusiasm has hit a peak where buying is cheap chased by more buying, and the main catalyst at this point seems to be investors and portfolio managers are chasing performance into the end of the year, not wanting to miss out. Now, next week's catalyst will be the Federal Reserve interest rate hike decision on December 14th. Traders are pricing in a 95% chance that the Fed will take rates up 25 basis points. That's according to the CME Group. And why wouldn't they? The Fed has been crystal clear in telegraphing its motive, and by remaining data dependent. Data is as strong as it has been since the start of the financial crisis. Employment in the States is nearly at full capacity, and corporate earnings have seemed to have troughed, and we are now on an upswing. Reporting from the NASDAQ market site, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a Kenyan artist teams up with one of our own. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
Researchers say that a new gene editing technique could pave the way towards a cure for sickle cell disease, which affects about 5 million people globally, with most cases in Africa.
We know exactly the mutation that causes the disease, and we know that if we correct that mutation, we will cure the disease.
Mark DeWitt of the University of California at Berkeley, the disease causes red blood cells to be abnormally shaped, blocking blood flow and leading to severe pain and organ damage. The researchers say they corrected the genetic mutation in stem cells and implanted the edited cells into a mouse.
We looked at the levels of editing, and we were getting levels of editing consistent with achieving a clinical benefit in patients with sickle cell disease.
DeWitt says that healthy red blood cells were produced efficiently enough to potentially cure the disease in humans, but it will be years before the research translates into treatment. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
And it's Music Makers Friday today, and we feature a collaboration with our very own Heather Maxwell and a Kenyan artist, Shipton Onyango, popularly known as Winyo. Heather is the host of VOA's Music Time in Africa. She joins me here in the studio. Heather, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
I'm excited to hear that you're in East Africa to start with.
Yeah, I bet you are.
How did you two meet?
We met when I was in Nairobi last September, and I was there with VOA doing reporting on different musicians, and he was one of them that I met. But then we got talking, we just kind of sang informally together, and everybody said, wow, you guys sound really good, your voices match. And he said, well, I've got this song that I was kind of looking for someone to help me out on. Let's work together.
And you know, I sneaked in on your video. I didn't tell you, but you know, I saw you a little bit, and you're singing in English.
Yes.
And Winyo is singing in Luo,
yes, which
is one of the languages spoken in Kenya. So, do you speak that language? Do you even understand what it was?
No.
So how did that go?
Well, you know, I was trained as a classical singer, and when you're classically trained, you learn to sing in different languages, even if you don't understand what it is. So he just taught me how to sound it right, and then he translated what it meant. So I just learned to sing the chorus part in Luo, but then I took my own interpretation in English.
And you know, we're going to watch a little bit of that video, but I'm interested in finding out where the video was made and how it was working together with Winyo. Just briefly.
Well, it was made in Nairobi in a studio production house called Ketable Music. And it's just a studio video, so we're just inside the studio. Actually, currently, we're in the process of making an official video where we're doing footage outside in Mombasa. Over there, Winyo's working in Mombasa. I'm working here in Washington, D.C., so we'll add that to this video later on.
And because we're going to play that video now, tell me, I know you've met so many other artists in Africa as well. Was this your first time in East Africa and in Kenya for that matter?
Yes.
And do you plan to continue maybe to do more collaborations
I
with
would love
Winyo?
to. With Winyo, definitely. Okay. I would love to.
I think it's time to take a listen and see what you guys did together.
Mombasa, ya biro jabera kalo Nairobi, ya biro akalo Nakuru.
I know that he's coming. Oh yeah, he's coming home. I know that my traveler baby's coming home. They saw my baby passing through Mombasa. They saw my sherry passing through Nairobi. They saw my baby passing through Nakuru. Ooh.
Heather, that is so beautiful. It takes me back home. You know, I'm from Kenya. So
Thank you.
Heather, thanks so much for another fantastic music segment. And I'm just wondering if you really have future plans with Winyo. Quickly, if you can tell me that.
Oh, yes. Like I said, we want to, actually, we're working on adding to this video, including footage from Mombasa, because he sings, and we both sing. He sings, I'm coming home, I'm passing through Mombasa, I'm passing through Nakuru, all these different towns.
I think we're going to get to learn more about Heather Maxwell and her VOA radio show. Please visit Facebook and type in the keywords Music Time in Africa, and you can see what time her program can be heard in your area and get more information about some of her featured artists. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. An award-winning architect travels the world lecturing about the unique approach to creating public buildings in Africa. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Ghana, some media outlets report the main opposition leader, Nana Akufo-Addo, has won the presidential election, but the country also awaits official results from the Electoral Commission. Violence flares up again in Anglophone Cameroon, where police shoot dead at least 4 protesters. In the DRC, the Catholic Church launches reconciliation talks aimed at ending a political stalemate threatening to push the country back into civil war. In Egypt, a militant group claims responsibility for a bomb blast that killed 6 policemen at a security checkpoint in Cairo. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
And welcome back. Award-winning architect Francis Kere travels the world lecturing about his unique approach to creating public buildings in Africa. His diverse work was recently exhibited at a major museum in the United States. Africa 54's Zoe Ludaki went to Philadelphia to meet with him.
African architect Francis Kere brings the colors of his country to the Philadelphia Museum of Art.
Color Space, an installation created specifically for the museum, takes the viewer in an intense visual voyage into a dense space created by hundreds of chords. The installation makes Francis feel,
I will say, like a swimmer, you know. You just enter in the water. At the surface is light, but if you go deeper, it's going darker.
The audience loved it, and Color Space became a must-see attraction in Philadelphia.
The inspiration for Color Space is simple to explain. You know, I'm coming from a little village in Burkina Faso. There we love colors, you know, and then we love to use what we have the most, whatever, simple material, like this cord is a very simple element, a material. And then another inspiration was structure. If we're talking about Africa, a village in Africa, you're talking about organic structure.
An organic structure informs his designs and use of materials. For Color Space, he blended the layout of his African village with that of Philadelphia and created a magical playground where people come together. Kere was born in Gando at the West African nation of Burkina Faso, was educated in Europe, and is now based in Berlin, Germany. But his heart and a large body of his work rests in the continent. He often refers to his work as a bridge between the West and Africa.
I'm trying to see how I can use knowledge from the Western world to create structure for the benefit of the people in my home, Burkina Faso, where there is a lot of things are missing.
His first project, where he was still a student of architecture, was building a primary school in his home village of Gando. He insisted on using only local materials, namely mud bricks. His Western teachers doubted him. After all, mud cannot survive the rainy season.
I told them we have a modern idea, which is not my invention, but then to just add a little percentage of cement inside the clay to make it durable, and then to mix it. So it's so what I call adapted technology, or like a low-cost technology. And the reality was we built a house which was bigger than every other things in the village. We built a school out of clay, and then it was standing.
Kere believes that architecture is about building a community and bringing people together.
And together we create something. So they're proud, and they feel like, oh, we own the building. It's our building. We did it ourselves. And this is important.
Francis Kere does not only make buildings, he also trains locals in building techniques and then employs them in other projects. Through his foundation, he creates a generation of craftsmen and builders.
And by the way, it helps you save a lot of money that you don't have. You understand? You train the people, but taking part of the building process, you give the people chance to identify themselves with the project you're doing.
His latest project is to build Burkina Faso's new National Assembly. The driving force behind it is democratic values of transparency, openness, and equality. Kere hopes that it will become a catalyst for growth and development for Ouagadougou.
Zoe Liudaki, VOA News, Philadelphia.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune into VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and a very good night from Washington.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
Here is U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry talking about U.S. and Chinese relations.
Listen for this word.
Emergence.
We welcome the emergence of a peaceful, stable, prosperous China that contributes to the stability and the development of the region and that chooses to play a responsible role in world affairs.
Emergence means the act of something appearing. It is coming out of hiding or just beginning.
Emergence also can describe nature, like the emergence of flowers which come every spring.
Now, when you hear the word emergence, you will know what this newsword means.